You know, we talk a lot about how an ERP is the engine that runs your business, but what's really going on under the hood? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pop that hood wide open. We're going to look at the technical blueprint of an ERP system using the amazing guides from ERPEDIA. Okay, let's get into it.
So let's start with a really simple but really important question. We all know the ERP runs the business, right? But what's running the ERP? Figuring that out is the key to really understanding its power, where it might be vulnerable, and honestly where the whole industry is headed. Just look at this. It gives you a great sense of the complexity we're talking about. An ERP isn't just one program. It's a whole stack of different layers, all working together. So for the next few minutes, we're going to build this thing from the ground up, starting with the one part you can't get wrong, the foundation. And that brings us right to layer 1, the data foundation. See, before we can even talk about software or servers or anything like that, we have to talk about the data itself. Absolutely everything in an ERP system depends on how that data is structured. So almost every ERP out there is built on something called a relational database. The easiest way to think about it is like a giant, perfectly organized digital library. Every single piece of info, a customer name, a product number, an invoice, it all has a very specific home in a table, and all those cables are linked together in a really logical way.
Okay, so why does this technical stuff matter to your business? Well, that's the important part. Data integrity means you have built-in rules to keep bad data out. You know, garbage in, garbage out. This stops that. No redundancy means you're not saving the same customer's address in 5 different places. And when you put it all together, you get that ultimate promise of an ERP. One single, reliable source of truth for the entire company.
All right, our data has a solid, organized home. Now, where does this system actually live? And maybe even more important, what happens if there's a disaster? That brings us up to layer 2, hosting and recovery. These days, most ERPs are in the cloud, but the cloud isn't just one thing, it's really a spectrum. On one side, you've got infrastructure as a service, or IaaS, where you have a ton of control, but also a ton of responsibility. On the complete other side, you have software as a service, or SaaS, where you basically just log in and use it, because the vendor handles everything else. It's a huge strategic choice between control and convenience. This table from ERPEDIA breaks it down perfectly. You see the pattern here? As you move from IaaS on the left to PaaS in the middle, and then all the way to SaaS on the right, that blue bar, the stuff you have to manage, it just gets smaller and smaller. Picking the right one is all about balancing what your IT team can handle with how much control you really need. Now, no matter where your ERP lives, this number should really make you pause. 40%. That's how many businesses close their doors for good after a major data loss. It's just a brutal statistic, and it proves that having a recovery plan isn't a nice-to-have, it's absolutely essential.
So what's the solution? How do you make sure you're not in that 40%? Well, the gold standard in the industry is the 3-2-1 rule. It's so simple and so effective. You keep 3 copies of your data, you store them on 2 different kinds of media, like, say, a hard drive and in the cloud, and you make sure at least one of those copies is kept completely off-site. It's your ultimate insurance policy. Okay, so our foundation is solid, and we've got a backup plan for disasters. Now it's time to build the walls and lock the doors. Let's move up to layer 3 and talk about securing the core of our ERP. An ERP is basically a treasure chest of your company's most sensitive data, which makes it a huge target. And the threats can come from anywhere. It's not just ransomware or phishing attacks. Some of the biggest risks actually come from inside the company, or from simple mistakes like not installing a security patch or just setting up permissions incorrectly. So, how in the world do you defend against all that? Well, one of the most powerful ideas in cybersecurity is the principle of least privilege. It's a simple concept. Nobody gets access to anything unless they absolutely need it to do their job. The default answer to "can I have access" should always be no. This one idea can dramatically shrink your risk. So, we've built this secure fortress. It's strong, it's protected, but a fortress that's totally cut off from the rest of the world isn't very useful, is it? Our final layer is all about building the bridges. Welcome to layer 4, connecting the enterprise. A modern ERP has to talk to everything. Your website, your CRM, your bank, and the way it does that is with something called an API. And honestly, I have to share this analogy from ERPEDIA because it's perfect. An API is like a restaurant menu. It lets other applications see what's available and place an order.
but it never lets them go charging into the kitchen the core database to make it themselves. It's a safe, structured way to communicate.
Now, not all APIs speak the same language. The two big ones you'll hear about are REST and SOAP. You can think of REST as the modern, flexible language of the internet. It's fast, lightweight, perfect for web and mobile apps. SOAP is a bit older, much more formal and rigid. You'll see it in big, old-school enterprise systems where that strict structure is a top priority.
And here's where it gets really cool, the direction of the conversation. With a normal API, your website has to keep pulling data from the ERP. It's constantly asking, hey, any new orders? Any new orders yet? But with a webhook, the ERP pushes the information out the second something happens. The moment a new order comes in, bam, it sends it to your other systems. That push is what makes real-time business possible. So when you put all these pieces together, the data, the hosting, the security, and these powerful connections, you start to see a huge shift in how ERPs are designed. It's all about an API-first architecture. That means systems are now being built from day one to be a connected hub, not some isolated island. This approach unlocks incredible flexibility and just makes everything work together so much more smoothly.
And that really leaves us with one last question to think about. When you look at your own company, is your ERP that central, connected hub that powers everything else? Or is it more of a disconnected island creating extra work and data headaches? Understanding the blueprint we just walked through is really the first step to building those bridges and creating a truly connected enterprise. Thanks so much for joining me.
Professionals lobby, grow, connect, succeed.